Welcome back to part 2 with Pat Ouckama. In the first half, he gave us context and history. Now we'll turn to the future, how the game might evolve, and what this means for kids, parents, coaches, and everybody involved in youth soccer in America. Let's get back into it.
Try to focus about, let's say, the younger kids up to U13. Let's talk about position on the field. On the academy side, do you already have a position for a kid in your mind or a profile? Or do you like it when at that age kids play various positions? And especially when parents, and this I hear a lot from the sideline, is, oh, my kid is a great striker. I cannot believe they're playing him a fullback, even though the kid is the tallest. So, how does the academy see that? Let's say up to U13 or U14, the oldest.
Yeah, so it's interesting because in my experience with the two professional academies I've worked at, we've started at U14 and U13 and another. So we start at those age groups as opposed to working with those younger age groups before. At the younger age groups, if we go younger than that, I want to keep options open. We don't know how this kid is going to develop physically. We don't know how he's going to develop mentally, what skills he might have, what his perception of the field is. Can he play in the middle of the park? We just don't know yet. As we get towards the 14, 15, 16, we start to get an idea. I mean, look, there was a kid who I lived with in New England. He was in the house, and then but I also coached him. And I had coached him when he was a little bit younger. And he had just come from another club, and, I asked him what position he had played, and he's like, I play the number 10. And I kind of like, well, everyone here played the number 10.
All of America
that's actually
number 10.
that was actually going to be my next question. Which
how many 10s do we need?
That is, I mean, if you're a smaller club, your best player is probably playing that position. Yeah. We like him, we're going to take him. But guess what? There's 3 studs in that position, and for that kid in particular, I remember putting him at fullback, and he was lights out, and he's a professional right now.
Wow.
And that's a kid who, I remember telling him, and he and I have laughed about it since, is I think you're, when he got to a certain age, I'm like, okay, I think you're going to you could be a really good college number 10, and you might be a pro fullback. Like that's kind of what you're looking at. And, you try to wait as long as you can, but then, you start to, as the kids start to mature physically and you start to see his game a little bit, you start to get a feel for where he might break in. Yeah. And the other piece of the puzzle I'll put here is, when we start talking about the special kids in the academy that are probably playing number 10 for the academy, you also have to think about their route into the first team, which can be problematic because that's where most first teams are spending $2 million on a player. So it becomes actually easier, so to speak, for a fullback or a center back to break into the first team.
Yeah. The question I was going to ask you, which I think you somewhat touched on, but I know it's a conversation that happens all the time, which is when a professional academy wants a kid at U13 or U14, and those kids many of them are playing as a 10 or playing as an 8, and the families know that if the kid goes to X professional academy, they're probably going to be playing right back, left back, or a position that they haven't been accustomed to playing before. And there seems like there's this dilemma, which is, when is it too early to move a kid out of the center of the park to play, as a back or as a winger? You're going to play them, but which may not be natural for them initially. Like, your kid's potentially moving too soon out of what could be their position, or, hey, if they move to right back or they move to left back or whatever it may be, if they're good enough, they'll find their way back into a 10 or to an 8.
It's a good question. And I'll go back to the example I just gave you of the kid who ended up being a right back. We would bounce him back and forth. He clearly was skilled, and he had clearly played in the middle of the park. So we gave him those opportunities. And it was around that time where I told you, okay, now we're having the conversation of, all right, now we're getting to those older age groups. Here's where we see you, man. And this is not just me talking to the coaches, talking to everybody. This is, we come to a kind of a consensus of, this is where, trying to nudge him in that direction, because we think that's where he can really break in. To your point, well, we don't want to hoodwink a kid and bring him in and, oh, you're going to play the number 10, and then he's center back.
That never works well.
That doesn't do anyone any good. So we're not trying to do that, but we will be honest, and the parents will always ask, where do you see him? And we'll say, listen, right now we see him here, but I want you to be ready for, I've seen kids come in one position and come out in a completely different position. And That's not to say that the system doesn't work. It's for me, it's a sign that the system is working, and if we can churn out a professional player.
So the $1 million question for a parent that is kind of starting to face these dilemmas before, of course, they get to U15, U16, it's a different story. But are you better off playing full-time at a weaker team, or are you still better off playing part-time at a team surrounded by better players?
I have two questions for you to answer that properly.
Uh-oh.
One is, what age are we talking about?
Let's say up to U14, U15. I don't know. You tell me, actually. I mean, when does it change? When does it change?
The answer changes, right?
Okay.
And then the second question I have is, when you say better for who?
Better for who? So, okay, one club would have more prestige. When I don't know. Jeez. Why'd you write me that question? I can't.
I didn't write you any question.
But I'm getting back to your conversation with the role of the parents, because I fielded this question quite a bit, and it's usually the parent who is uncomfortable seeing his kid not play as much as he used to play, and sometimes the kid is just fine, sometimes not.
Wow.
But that's when you say better. I'm like, all right, well, who's speaking here?
Yeah, I think it goes back to those conversations in the car, and I've been guilty of those, and I've hopefully learned a little bit from them, right? Which is, the kid may be fine playing 35 or 40 minutes a game because they're training their butt off and it's high quality, and they may not be happy, but they understand it's a process. But the minute we start, getting into their minds that they should be playing more, and what are we doing here, then that becomes that you can't get back from that.
But isn't the cliche that American kids don't play enough minutes, not just in their teams, but pickup or whatever? Isn't it all about playing time, or is it not?
It's important. I'm not going to tell you it's not important. I'm also going to add in the hours per week and training at that level, whether 7, 8, 9 hours a week. That is going to have a huge effect on, rather than going to the club and training where you're clearly the best player and you're the stud out there, and you're not being pushed to the brink the way you would in a professional environment.
Can I ask you,
Matt, to your point, I think you hit the nail on the head of, a lot of this comes back to, what is the conversation, in the car on the way home? And if the parent can be encouraging of the process and keep at it, buddy, you'll get it, then I think the kid has a chance to, maybe not next week, maybe not next month, but eventually get where he wants to go. Where I think if it's more, all right, we got to get you out of here and get you to a club where you're the best kid, we know what that experience is going to look like. And we also know that there's probably a ceiling to that kid.
There is I was going to say a groundswell. I'm not sure that's the best way to explain it. But even with 4 team trainings a week at the academy level from U13 on up, that there's simply, you mentioned hours, but there simply aren't enough touches. There's so much focus in team training on tactics, what to me seems a little bit too young. If it's U13 and U14, I think Arsene Wenger has this famous quote, if you can't build the house, you can't build the foundation when kids are 16 years old, and you just can't go backwards on these things, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious to your perspective, like, do you think there are enough touches in training for kids in team training? And the other aspect, there's this frenzy around private trainings to get more touches. But then you go back to the kids and the geography, and if you're going, you're commuting 2.5 hours a day to training, you're training 4 days a week. Like, when does this stuff even happen?
Yeah.
So I packed a lot into that, but
yeah, I'll start with the first part with training. And I'm, especially at the young ages, I think they need a ton of touches. To exactly your point, you can't catch up on that later. If you don't have that technical quality, then you've missed the boat. When I'm looking at the up and coming coaches, or when I'm hiring, what I see is, because there's so much access to, we can go see Pep's session, we can go see Mourinho's session, we can go look at that stuff right now. And I think you have a lot of up and coming coaches, and it's great information. I'm not knocking the information, but you have a lot of coaches that want to play chess out there and want that's how their style has developed. And the guys that I try to work with and try to hire or bring in and stay connected to are the ones that understand, like, where they are in the grander scheme. If they can zoom out see from 30,000 feet. Okay, you have a 13-year-old kid. The pressing action, like, yeah, I'm not saying it's not important, but if he's not getting 500 touches tonight, then that's a problem. And so we can't substitute tactics for technical development, especially at the younger ages.
So as an academy director, you're looking at your coaches. Let's say you said you started at U13. Is that what you said the youngest year was?
When I was in New England, 13, yeah.
Okay. Was winning important? Is that, how do you, what is, yeah, it was. Are you shaking your head? No?
Absolutely. Yes. Say it this way. It's a part of the process. They have to, winning and doing everything you can to win a match is really important. Now, whether they win every match or not, yeah, we can go back and forth on that. I don't need them to, I'm not going to crush them if they don't win a game. I might crush them a little bit if they're not doing everything they can to try to win the game. Because ultimately, if they're showing up and they're going to play good this day and it's up and down, the first thing that professional coaches want is consistency. And they don't want a kid who's going to show up one day here and one day there. And so there has to be that element of competing and trying to win throughout. We try to see a kid in training, in a really even match, in a match that they're dominating, and a match that they're getting dominated. We try to see as much, we try to check all those boxes as much as we possibly can. And I think about this all of the time, whether it's players, whether it's coaches, how much information can I get? Because we all can point to a player right now, oh, he doesn't train well, but he shows up in big games, or he trains really well and he disappears in some of those games. And we have to know, we need all that information before we decide on a kid, and certainly before I send him up to the first team.
Back to NYCFC, because that's my experience right now, is at the younger ages, which is the U13, U14, usually your first thing when you come into the team meetings, they'll tell the parents, get used to losing. You're going to lose a lot. And then the coaches do these kind of bulk substitutes where, let's say, they'll sub 6 players in a game at one time. So obviously it's not a tactical move. It's a move to give minutes to the kids. It's not chess. As a parent, you can't help but be frustrated. But the team is saying, well, we're making progress. How do you balance that?
Well, Laurent, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What are you frustrated about?
Well, that's why I was asking.
Because you wouldn't sub 6 kids. You don't think the continuity is gonna flow really well with 6 new kids coming into a match?
As a great FIFA manager, I rarely do these kind of 6 substitutes at once. But,
well, you know what's funny is as I answer, I'm trying to not have a kid that I work with in the future come back to this interview because and because what I want to say, and I'll just say it out now, like what I said was, it's important to try to win every single time. It's less important to me that they actually win every single time. And so
that's a big difference.
And so there is a difference, and an important one. And so if we are making changes like that, sure, we're doing it to develop a lot of players, to see where they're at in their development, to test them and give them different experiences. But at the end of the day, anyone working at this level understands that this is a slow burn.
Hey, Pat, transitioning a little bit, you've had the privilege of coaching, working with on your staff, ex-pros, highly licensed coaches. Talk about how you work with them differently. Like, how do you allow them to bring their own experience, their own perspective to their teams, while yet I'm sure you've developed a methodology that you need everybody to work within, right? What does that look like in a big picture, small picture, day to day? Like, how do you interact?
It's a challenge management wise, because you're managing a group of people all who are at different places in their careers and different places with their experience with the game. Sometimes you have young coaches that are really ambitious and they're on their way up. Sometimes you have ex-players who have made a career of it and now starting their coaching career, and they're in a completely different spot, and everyone in the middle. For me, what's important is to, just like all of these conversations, set the expectations, here are the guidelines, and especially with coaches, you got to give them their autonomy at times to do their thing, because they're leaders in and of themselves, and they need to feel that you trust them to make decisions in the best interest of the club and of the development of the players. There are a lot of coaches, a lot of faces that are going through my head right now, and I've learned so much from all of them. And the ones that I smile about are probably the ones that I bumped heads with the most. And it's the same thing with players. I have a couple players that pop into my mind, and man, they were a pain, but they made me a better coach and challenged me in a way to manage them and to manage the session. Feel the same way about some of those coaches. And so kind of where I was in my career, right? For my first 4 years in the league, I was more coaching, and I had these players pop into my mind that would just ruin a session if I wasn't on point and I didn't have everything set.
How, when you say ruin a session, how? Like asking questions, like just not falling in line. Like what does that even look like?
When I say ruin a session, I mean, so I'll give the example. I was on that French course, right? And so a lot of the sessions that I'm delivering are I'm practicing and I'm working on things. And so I'm trying to create this very specific principle. And if one of the rules isn't set correctly, and one of the kid can kind of not do this principle and he can get around it by doing a different action. And I had a couple players that were very, very clever and would figure out how to game the game. And so if I'm not buttoned up, they will game the game, they will win the game, but they haven't worked on the principle that I wanted them to work on, and that's on me.
Yeah.
So I have players like that in New England. And then when I became the director in DC, I have, it was more now I'm managing the coaches, and I have coaches that certainly pushed me to be a better manager.
So you brought up culture, right? You talked about Malaga when we discussed this before. Does that apply to coaches as well? Because when I look at coaches here, the coaches most of them are product of the American youth soccer system. And we were just talking about culture here being very different as far as intensity of the game itself.
Yep.
So coaches not having that culture, is that a detriment or is it a plus because they're American coaches understanding American kids?
I think you hit the plus and the minus, right? I think we have a lot of really, really good, young, talented, ambitious, hungry coaches. And there's look, we got the World Cup coming next year, and I think it's going to add another wave of players and coaches.
And we had to get an Argentinian guy to come in and coach us. I mean, it says something, doesn't it?
I mean, we're not the only country in the world to have a foreign coach.
By the way, I don't think a foreign coach has ever won a World Cup with a non-native team. I want to hear about the coaches thing. So a little bit about the idea of culture. You said it's a plus and a minus. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? On like, let's say if you were in DC United, or is it why not bring a bunch of French coaches to kind of reshape the culture of the team?
I think I'll even zoom in a little bit further. You need people working in this market that know this market. And it's the same in New England, LA, Atlanta, wherever you go. There is value to having people who understand the market, who have lived here, worked here for years. So if you're zooming out and talking about international coaches, I'm not saying there's not a place for them. There surely is. And the answer is somewhere in the middle, but there's absolutely value to, I'll speak for myself, when I come to DC and I'm the one guy who didn't grow up here. And I got a lot of questions about the geography and the traffic patterns and the clubs, and that takes time. It takes years to learn. And so I'm better at my job after 2 years having understood the geography now, because a lot of the conversations that we're talking about with, whether it's with coaches, whether it's with other clubs, whether it's with families, it's really taking the time to take a deep dive and to understand what their constraints are, what their resources are, where they're coming from, where the schools are. There's 3 different states in the area. Like that, there's a lot of factors that if you bring in too many coaches from the outside, you might miss something. So
you're saying having a heavy, thick European accent doesn't immediately make you a better coach or know more about soccer. So, all right. I learned that here. Another myth explodes in my face.
Oh, Laurent.
Just one quick, and then Matt, you can move forward. I just want to walk one back. Back to Malaga, dual existence of what's happening here and there. We talked about, Matt brought up touches, outside technical training, and kind of extracurricular learning. Do they do a lot of outside training in Malaga, these academy kids, or it's mostly contained within the academy?
Or are they just playing in the street and in the playgrounds?
Yeah, where is that extra, exactly, where's that extra coming from?
Yeah, that's where the culture comes in that we were talking about, right? They're watching the game. They're also in their yard. They're in the street. Like they're getting in those extra touches. It's not prescribed. It's not taking their kid to necessarily a private training, but if they have an hour and the kids are in the street, they're playing, or they're staying at the park later, they're finding a space to do it. So in all of that space where kids here are watching the NFL on a Sunday, for example, that they're not doing that. They're out in the street after they've watched Malaga play their match. So that's 3 hours right there that they have up on us.
So by the time, let's say a kid is, I don't know, someone maybe she could do the metrics, but by the time a kid is 13 or 14, Academy European kid might have had thousands and thousands more touches than in the average American kid. They just had more time playing the game.
More touches, and I think they've trained their eye more too. Like they've watched the match more, and I think that's
how do you make that up? No, really, like how do you recover something like that? That's such a gap.
That's exactly what we're trying to figure out.
Now I'm depressed.
Pat, let me ask you a question around style of play. For a while, America was known as a tough, like the American player was a tough, gritty player, good in the air, not particularly technical, but fought and had grit, right? And gave everything they possibly could give. And I'm not suggesting the American player isn't that today, but I think as the technical development has improved in this country and players are better than they were 10 years ago or 15 years ago, we somehow still lack any sort of style of play. Like if you ask anyone, what's the men's national team known for, or what is the American player known for, I think you really struggle to find an answer of what that is. I'm curious, when you're running an academy or you're coaching a team, do you guys talk about style of play?
The first question varies, and it depends on the structure of the club. And I've worked at clubs where there was a very direct, this is how we want you to play. And I've worked in environments where, do your thing, Pat, send us your best player. That right there has a really different feel for how we go about our business. Ultimately, I want to work in a style of play that will develop a high-level player. So that is really the North Star for us. And if we win games and win trophies along the way, great. And we love that, and it looks great for the club. But at the end of the day, if we're not building, if we're not possession, if we can't move the ball east to west, if we can't break down lines, if we don't have good 1v1 players, if we can't make well-timed runs in the box, if we can't do all of these individual actions, then I've done the player a disservice. So for me, if I'm left to my devices, I'm choosing a style of play that will produce a player for the first team. And if I have a clear direction, even better. Now I know exactly what you need, and I'll get you that guy. In terms of the
when
US,
you say first team, you're talking about the professional team, or so that professional team is, as you're understanding that style, it can sometimes seep into the younger ages and what it is you're looking for as far as progress is concerned. There's really that kind of relationship exists.
In my experience, I've had varied experiences where there's a lot of clear direction and where there's not a lot. And so that affects, if there's not a lot of direction for the top, no problem. Then we have to develop it and decide as an academy, what is the best pathway, what's the best development pathway for the player to enter that environment.
Wow.
As far as the US, it's good to look at other countries and see what's been done and what's been successful. And we have to realize we have some major differences, and those are huge opportunities for us. And that the fact that we have more technical players is a good thing. The fact that we have more players playing at the top leagues in Europe is a good thing. And yeah, it's going to take the leadership at U.S. Soccer to decide, all right, this is the path we think will develop a World Cup winning team.
Maybe we move to rapid fire, Laurent, unless we could do this all night with Pat.
No, it's amazing. Go ahead, Matt.
I don't remember my question at this point.
Come on.
Don't worry, Pat, we'll edit this.
Why? This is perfect.
I know.
Don't edit that.
What's that? Yeah, no. What the heck was my question, Laurent? You totally messed up.
What's your favorite food?
All right. It's going to come to me at another time. But
all right, do your rapid fire.
All right, Pat, we're going to wrap up. We're super grateful for your time. Some quick rapid fire questions coming at you.
Let's go.
One trait you always look for in a young player.
A player that is not taking a play off. He's having an impact even when the ball is on the other side of the field.
Best youth player you've ever coached or had an academy?
You guys want names? Is that what you?
You can drop a few.
Is there a youth?
He didn't
player?
ask for the worst. He said for the best. So it's fine.
There's multiple homegrown players at both New England and DC that I coached personally. Was coaching their team and spent a few years with those kids. Yeah, I think when I look back on it, like all of those kids were really hungry, really accepted challenges. That was like food for them. And when I look back at each of those kids who kind of peaked at different times, but that was one thing that was in common.
Well, you dodged that so well. Okay, I understand.
He's good, that guy.
But best advice you have for parents just entering the uber competitive youth soccer world. We're not talking about AYSO, but coming into the academy life, whether it's professional academies or an MLS Next Academy, but just getting into it.
Understand that these are professional coaches and they're spending their days planning on what that session is going to look like. That is a completely different experience than, I want to be careful with my words, but then a soccer dad going and running a session in the park for his kid. This is a slow burn. This is going to take a long time. It's the job of people like me to not look at what's going to happen tomorrow or next week, but to ask myself, what does this kid need in 2, 3, 4 years to potentially be a pro?
Favorite memory from your own playing career?
I'm gonna do you one better here. I'm gonna show you. This is, if you can see the. You guys see this a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit of a glare. We see it.
Wow, that's it.
So I'm the young guy on the end there. That's my father and my two older brothers. This is us in Cass Park at Ithaca, and this is when we all kind of crossed paths. I was probably 11 or 12. My dad's early 40s, so we all crossed paths on the field. And yeah, that didn't happen for too long, but it was a good few years where we were able to hop on the field together.
Culture, right? I mean, it's back
amazing.
to that. I mean, what this huge theme of this conversation today has been that. It's just extraordinary stuff.
One change you'd make to the youth system in the U.S., if you could, aside from eliminating pay for play, which we all know is impossible given the structure that exists.
I think there's so much good work being done right now. And before I answer what we should do going forward, I do want to stop. And I think all three of us are old enough to remember when the MLS started.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
It's been 30 years. And listen, everyone loves to boo owners and management and the commissioner, but the league is in an incredible place if you think about where this started with 10 teams, a handful of owners. The league almost folded a couple of times. I was on the phone with a couple of guys the last couple of weeks who were around when this thing started. One in the GM's office, one as a player. And just like this thing almost folded.
Yeah.
And to see where it's at now with the level of play, the Adidas, it's Apple, it's soccer-specific stadiums, it's infrastructure for the academy. It's pretty incredible where it is right now.
It is.
Where does it need to go moving forward? I think we need to continue pushing forward and continue with the investment. And I think we need to make sure that we see it like that as an investment in the future of young players in this country, but also an investment in the infrastructure of the sport. And if we continue on that path, Red Lipka and Luis Robles, they're working hard and they're doing a good job and they're providing an environment where the best kids are getting an opportunity to prove themselves. Does it need to be refined? Sure. It's always going to need to be changed along the way. But seeing where we were 30 years ago, seeing where we are now, I'm excited to see where this goes, because next summer we're going to get a shot in the arm when the World Cup is here. And the next golden generation of players, they're going to be in the stands watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what you said is really resonating, because if you think about England or Spain, I mean, these leagues have been going on for eternity. We had Ben Olsen here, and he described going to Arrowhead Stadium and playing in front of 600 people.
And he's a great example of a guy who's seen it all, for sure.
Wow, this has been amazing. Look, Pat, not just for us, just you being here, just your work in general is just admirable. Just the way you think of the game, this idea of inclusion and betterment is really just inspiring for us as parents and lovers of the game. We're honored to have you here. Just I have so many more questions, and Matt just keeps going like this. All right, we'll do another episode. Relax, everybody. Okay.
I appreciate the time, and I appreciate what you guys are doing, because ultimately There's a question in there. You guys did have a question, and I had it all queued up. The question you guys asked about.
Maybe that was the question Matt forgot.
The question you asked me, what do I see as the most common and overlooked barriers?
Oh, yeah.
Most important question. That was the whole.
Lauren, why don't you reset and ask the question? Go ahead.
I want to hear Pat ask himself the question so people know what a lousy job we did at preparing for this interview.
The most common and overlooked barriers. The first one, I would say, it's happening in real time right now. We're having this conversation. A lot of the problems and confusion happen because there's not a clear understanding of what the landscape looks like, and it's a confusing one. Right. But conversations like this are valuable. All the players aren't always in the room for that. All the parents aren't always in the room, and so to be able to reach more people and have these conversations so that they understand the landscape, I've talked a lot about having this earlier and setting the expectations, and a lot of that is educating people on what this looks like, whether you're a player, whether you're a parent, whether you're a partner club. All of that is super important work. So if podcasts like these can bridge that gap, you're making guys like me my job easier.
Oh, that's great. Jeez. Well, we appreciate that.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Oh man, much.
Throw one more thing at you. In terms of barriers, we talk about geography, we talk about education and residency. The thing I would bring up when it comes to that, it's not just the participation. Just, okay, we got them here. It's also what's the experience when they're here. Mm-hmm. And those kids that we've spent time and money on getting them into a van or getting into a residency house, well, we have to follow. That's a promise that we've made, and we have to follow up. And we have to make sure that those kids are receiving the very best in terms of a professional experience. Another barrier that came along that I thought of as we were talking, I took Spanish growing up, and then I learned, and then I did a semester in Sevilla. So I was always okay at it. And I was always surprised that living in New York, I actually didn't use it that much. But when I came to DC, it was every day. I still have lessons 3 times a week with my Spanish teacher. She lives in Colombia, and we talk 3 days a week. And because it was important for me to remove that barrier with the parents and the families and the kids themselves, I'm going to speak your language now. And you're going to feel a little bit more comfortable coming into my environment because you're going to hear your native tongue. And no, I don't want the father to be tripping over his English trying to talk to me. I'm going to trip over my Spanish and talk to you.
It's incredible.
And we're going to do it that way.
Wow.
And
brilliant.
That's creating an environment where I'm building trust and building an atmosphere where hopefully that ride home is going in my favor a little bit, and more importantly, in the favor of the kids' development.
It's amazing. Laurent is a little disappointed, though, given that he's Israeli, that you didn't do this interview in Hebrew. We'll have to do this in part 2.
That most sideline parents at NYCFC know how to curse in Hebrew pretty well by now. So I'm an influencer. Pat, man, wow, what a privilege, huh, Matt?
It was awesome. Jeez. Thank you so much.
No, it's my pleasure. I enjoyed this, fellas.
All right, and we'll see you in the city, man, and to be
fellas.
Continued. All right, well, Pat,
all right, man.
Thank you, man.
Great to see you.
Great
all right,
night.
cheers.
Bye.
Pat, thank you so much for sharing your time and perspective. We love the conversation and hope that you did too. We'll certainly pick this up in future episodes, what the next decade could look like for youth soccer in America.
Now it's my turn. So I'm going to say, please subscribe, like. It means a lot to us, you cheap bastard. We love you all. See you later, Matt.
Thank you, guys.